Her maternity leave wrapped up in March of 2020. So she decided to not come back, and they asked me if I'd be willing to stay on. So I went from being the volunteer coordinator, moving up into the manager of volunteer engagement. So now they can't get rid of me. I'm having a lovely time. I've been working with volunteers for 24 years in different capacities, and I'm having a really, really good time organizing volunteers here because we have a lot of enthusiastic volunteers who are very committed. So they make my job relatively easy. Knowing that they are still volunteers makes it still challenging. So that's the short version of what I do here. I do the organization for the volunteers for our store. Being in Washington State, we don't have a restore, we have a store. For the construction site, the office, and even up to doing some organization with our board of directors and treating them like volunteers.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Welcome. Wendy, would you like to go ahead and say a little bit about yourself as well, please?
Sure. Let's see. I've been at Habitat 14 years. What's my current title? My current title is, let's see, Restore Director, I believe. Director of Retail Operations. I think that's the newest one. I can't keep them straight. I just say Restore Director. That's easy. It makes it. Let's see. When I started 14 years ago, I came on with one store as the store manager, and 2 weeks into my new job, they told me we were moving our store. So now we've moved. I think that is the second move. We've moved twice and opened an additional store here in Simi, where I'm at. And this one's been here, I think, 10 years now. And then now recently, I think last December, we started our online store. So fun never ends. We're keeping busy over here.
Awesome. Thanks, Wendy. We're so happy to have you. And I'm going to turn it over to Crystal for our discussion questions.
Fabulous. Well, thank you both for sharing a little bit about yourself and for being here on this call. We really appreciate your time today. The format for today is we're going to ask a question and give Wendy and Amy a little bit of time for them each to share their knowledge and experience. And then we're also going to open up, because this is a networking type of call. Other people on this call might also have wisdom, experience, success stories that they want to share. So after Wendy and Amy have some time to share, then we will give everybody else on the call just a moment if they wanted to add anything, to the topic. And our first question out the gate is, how do you recruit volunteers for your restore? What does that recruitment process look like? Wendy, we're going to go ahead and start with you, and then Amy, if you could follow up.
Okay, great. So recently, well, thanks to Crystal, we just had a volunteer booth at a big event, getting us a lot of volunteers. I'm not sure what we actually called the volunteer collaboration, but we did receive a few from there. And then I also work with our construction site. I've actually pilfered a couple of their volunteers to the store. We've got a couple cashiers and some people in the back that don't mind helping us fix some stuff. And we also do some online stuff with our Facebook and our Instagram. We're asking for volunteers. We send out a volunteer monthly email, same with the restore, and we also attach the volunteer email to that sometimes. Lately, let's see, the training, we're using the Civic Champs for sign in. So typically they'll go to our website, sign up through there, And then once they come in with the Civic Champs, they sign in and it actually does their liability form through there. So they have to approve everything that's set up on the liability form before they can start volunteering. Then we do a quick little safety walk through the store and then give them the rundown on all of our different safety practices. And then we submit for them to do different locations in the store, depending on how long they volunteer with us. If they're just for one day afternoon, we usually give them typical, low volume tasks where they can easily just come in and help us clean or organize the area. Now, if they're going to be there longer, then we can get specific with different tasks like reorganizing a whole area, or if we have a group coming, we can redo different things with them. One big group we had come organize our doors, and size them all and make sure everything was put in the right spot, which sometimes moves quickly.
Right. And so Wendy, I'm gonna have Amy just
Sure.
check in on recruiting. And I know that you also recruit from other organizations, right? So really quick, do you want to add in some other organizations that you work with to recruit from? The Goodwill and
Me or Amy?
you, sorry,
Oh,
Wendy.
yeah. So
Yeah,
we
so we're
do-
just gonna go with the
Okay.
recruitment.
We have a few groups that we're working with currently right now. We do have a couple grants through the Goodwill where they're actually paid to volunteer with us for 100, I think it's like 130 hours. All their onboarding is done through the Goodwill. So they do their sexual harassment training and all that through the Goodwill. And then they come to us, volunteer the hours. And then we have a couple high school kids through a different Goodwill system. And that's a grant as well. And they come after school for, I think they're capped at like 15 hours a week, but since they're underage, but we also have them help us out at the register and a few other places. The other place we rely heavily on is the reemployability. So they're disabled from their regular job and they come in and they volunteer the hours they would normally be working at lower pace and less lifting and stuff like that. Different types of disabilities, but most of the time they're recuperating and then go back to their regular job after that.
Perfect. Thank you, Wendy.
Ready?
Amy.
All right. So how do you recruit volunteers for the Restore? I'm just restating the question there. So we have passive recruitment and active recruitment and word of mouth recruitment. So our passive recruitment is volunteer info displays in the store itself. We have information about how to volunteer that gets printed onto the receipt. That one's actually really popular because it has a little form that you can just turn right into a box in the store, so you can fill it out on the spot. And our website, we make sure that it has the up-to-date information about how to volunteer in the store specifically. The active recruitment is we go out to events, we go to even our local county fair and host a booth there. Our home show with our local home builders association is actually one of the places we get a lot of store volunteers specifically, because it's people who are looking to know what it is that they can donate from their remodel. So while we're there talking to them about that, we also talk to them about volunteering. And I get a lot of people saying, as soon as my home's done, absolutely. And then they actually follow through. And then we also do participate in job training programs. So we have, we don't have a local Goodwill that does job training. Ours is just a store, but through our local, we have a job training program through the school that does some placement for retail. And we have a job training through a local rehab place as well. And then the biggest #1 source of recruitment for volunteers in the store is actually store volunteers. So if they are having a really good time, they will bring their friends. And we encourage them to bring their friends, and we will take friends on a tour through the store so that they can see what it is that they'd be doing before they even do an orientation or any other onboarding thing. So if a volunteer comes in and says, my friend is interested, they get special star treatment right away. And then customers, of course, being another source, which we've done with that passive recruitment, but we make sure that our volunteers are actively talking to people at the counter about the fact that they are volunteers and other people should be volunteers too.
That's awesome, Amy. Thank you so much. And I'm sure some of the others on the call might have additional insight, wisdom, success stories. Does anyone want to share? If you've got your video on, I've got it in gallery mode so I can see you. Raise your hand. Otherwise, you can use the raise hand button. If you don't feel like getting on like here, you can also type something into the chat. And I have to say, I'm really excited to hear that our Ventura County Volunteer Fair led to additional volunteers going to the Restore. That makes me happy, though. That's a success, another success story of the day. All right, looks like Jennifer. Yes.
I would definitely say that over the last few years, the like partnerships with other orgs has been the most consistent form of getting volunteers, and for that, you know, for us, that's particularly important. We don't have a large enough operation that it's always necessarily helpful to have those one-time volunteers. Occasionally we can have projects where we can have a group of, you know, one-time volunteers come in and just get a really awesome project done that needed a lot of hands. But in general, you know, there's quite a bit of training that goes into the different positions at our store. And so we really want to have those consistent, you know, regular volunteers. And yeah, recently this year, Easter Seals has been a great partnership for us. In the past, CareWorks has been another one of those work transition sort of programs when there's been a injury on the job site. I think that was mentioned. Trying to think of some other programs. There have been a handful, but the last couple of years, those have been the most impactful and supportive of our org or our
That's
affiliate,
awesome.
that is. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that those groups that you talked about, Wendy's utilized them for really great projects like, you know, painting and window washing and things like that. So we've had some groups do some wonderful things. So it's got some great projects for them when they come in. So thank you everyone for your insight and answers. If you have any more ideas of recruitment that you want to put into the chat, go ahead and send that over there. The next question up is we're going to have Amy. We'll have you go first, and then Wendy. Let's discuss your training and onboarding process for your Restore volunteers. Is it like a formal process? Do you do it in person? Do you send them links ahead of time, or do any portion of it online?
I actually moved away from doing any portion of it online after I was able to. I find that having a face-to-face conversation works a lot better for keeping long-term engagement. So we make sure our orientation is separate from our onboarding. So we do an orientation that gives information about Habitat International in general, Habitat, our affiliate specifically, about all of the different things that volunteers do at Habitat. So it's not just, very rarely is it just a very specific, this is a Restore volunteer orientation. The orientation is a very comprehensive for our affiliate. And then when we have a new volunteer shift in the store that happens 5 times a week, where somebody can sign up for their first 2-hour onboarding shift, where we have checklists that we follow so that we make sure that we get everything from where are the fire extinguishers to where do you put your time, where's the first aid kit, so that we make sure we don't miss any of those things in the onboarding. After that, we make sure that they are comfortable signing up in our sign up program, because it is unfortunately not intuitive. It is not my favorite thing. We're working on getting a new one, but making sure that volunteers have all of that information up front, they become invested by being informed. So when they have more information, they feel immediately more connected to what they're doing. Connecting them to the mission, we talk a lot about how our store volunteers are building houses. Their work in the store builds houses. And that way they can say, when they drive by one of the Habitat houses under construction, I want them to be able to say, we helped build that. And having that information up front helps create that buy-in. So having separated out the orientation from the onboarding also makes it easier for people to absorb that information. I don't send any of the paperwork in advance because I want to talk about what it is and why it's important with them right before they fill it out. So we do a waiver, an application, and a code of conduct agreement in that first meeting. I generally prefer 1 or 2 people in an orientation, and it keeps it actually shorter, and people are more comfortable asking questions in a smaller group. So when they come in, I try really hard to not overwhelm them and do large group orientations.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Amy. Wendy.
Well, we do usually 1 to 2 people when they come volunteer the orientation. They do have to sign up online through our Civic Champs app, and that's through our website. If it's a big group, we do hold a little ceremony at the beginning, and they've pre-registered, almost all of them. So when they do come in, they have an idea of how long they're volunteering for, how many days, or what the tasks are, if we can tell them ahead of time, especially if it's a big group doing a specific thing. We do keep a binder at our register at the front where they're signing in, and it has each department with specific tasks for people to do on top of the sign in and the liability form when they first sign up. We do also want to do a quick store walk around with them all so they can see all of our safety procedures and our emergency kits and all that fun stuff. We'd like to ask them where they're the most interested in volunteering. Now, if they're doing multiple volunteer things, like they need so many hours to graduate or certain things like that, we can give them more in detailed volunteer jobs. But if they're only here for a couple hours, the easy cleaning and things like that is easier for a one-time couple-hour volunteer.
That's great. Thank you so much, Wendy. Yeah, I love, one of these days I'm going to have to get over and just like do the walk with you for the orientation process that you have at both stores. I remember being really glad to hear that there was a binder that had different job descriptions and knowing that it was also organized before I ever arrived. Yay. Made my part of the equation a lot easier. I did see, Tina, you had a question about what paperwork is sent out for volunteers to sign besides the waiver form. Through Civic Champs ahead of time, we sent out the code of conduct and a questionnaire that anyone who is signing up for a regular role, so not like a participant in an event that Bank of America like employees are doing, but like for the restore or working in an office or at our job sites. I also have a very extensive questionnaire, like what are you interested in? What days of the week are you available? What are your demographics? So very long thing there. So it's the waiver, the code of conduct, and the questionnaire for our side of the equation. Amy, how about for you?
The questionnaire is essentially what we call our application. So it has that demographic information. Where did you hear about us? That kind of stuff. So it sounds like it's pretty much the same thing.
Did anyone else want to share what their paperwork is? Did they have anything? Do you have anything besides the code of conduct or an application or the waiver that you send out to people? Vic?
Yeah, I had a quick question.
Sure.
What type of CMR do you use? Do you use like Volunteer Hub or something like that?
At Ventura County, we use Civic Champs. that Wendy has mentioned. It's a good system that seems to be working pretty well for us. Anyone else have stuff that a system that they're using that they really like? No, Amy's like, no, not me.
We are actively looking for a new one because ours is terrible. I'm not even going to name it. It's just terrible.
Fair enough. Jennifer, what are you using?
When I came on a few years ago, we had Volgistics, which I really struggled with. And so I understand it has the basics for a very affordable price. So it will get the essentials done if you have nothing. I think it's potentially a good first step. But I was struggling a lot with it, didn't have the features that I thought we needed. And so we've recently switched to Charity Proud. And I've looked into what was the one that you all just mentioned, Crystal? Civic
Jam.
Yeah. I've looked into that as well. That one seems like it has a good setup, but Charity Proud takes quite a bit of training. But I think that it has some incredible features and really designed well for affiliates. So
Wonderful. Yeah. And so this is good to know what everybody is using. And I see some notes on the side. We've got Volunteer Up. Scott's using. Says it works pretty good. And Selena says Habitat Fresno uses Volunteer Hub. So, and you like it, except when it comes to detailed reporting. Same with Civic Champs. I think that the pulling data off of it is one of the challenges on there, but who knows, maybe they will advance and do a little better in the future, but I always figure it out somehow. It just takes me a minute. Oh, and then Ricky's got Get Connected and Causer on your phone. Nice. And yes, Amy, Charity Proud and Give Effect are on our short list. Nice. Very good. Thank you all for sharing those details, because I think that is a core essential aspect of whether our days are easy or really, really hard. So we started out with a different software here too, and I switched it up. So wonderful. And then I think that soon, possibly ours is going to connect with Donor Perfect, and we're going to start to see if we can create some volunteers into donors. So we're going to start beta testing that next week. So, might have those worlds merging. All right. Did anyone else have a training or onboarding process that you use that you feel is in a good rhythm or success?
I was just going to ask with Amy and Wendy, are you using court mandated volunteers, or is that process the same as regular volunteers?
I actually don't use court mandated volunteers in the store. When they work with us, they work specifically on cleaning the office or landscaping or something we're making sure that we're also paying attention to our safeguarding principles.
So we are using them in our store. We do have that questionnaire before they start on asking specific questions on whether we can actually have them in the store with young people. But it seems to work great. Usually the smaller hours tend to be more community service unless it's something really major. But majority of them, we have actually switched over to employees from the community service volunteers. It just depends too on what they're mandated for.
Thank you, Wendy. Yeah. Whenever there's someone who comes to me that wants to volunteer and it's community service hours, they get asked the question what the infraction was. And if it is harm to person or property, they're told we're not able to accept them, but that the city should have something available for them, that most nonprofits will not be able to take them. So I steer them away with the application, the questionnaire that we have. Tina, looks like you've got your hand up, and then Ricky.
I was gonna say Ricky was before me if she wanted to.
Sure, Ricky, would you like to go?
Okay. What we have in Get Connected is as part of when they go on to the habitatportlandregion.org and click on the volunteer and then find out, get more, find out more. It takes them to a page, and then down at the bottom of that page, we actually have a mustard colored box that says, do you have court ordered community service hours? And then they've got another blue box that is for the rest. And if they do have court ordered hours, they must click on that box. It takes them to setting up the profile, but also to submitting the background check. And what our requirement is that they pass that background check before they even do an orientation in our store. And that way, they will know right away whether they are an acceptable candidate for volunteering in our store. And that sort of helps eliminate a lot that's in our, we get a lot being in the Portland area, Multnomah County. And so this has helped us a lot by, kind of going through that first pass.
Great. Ricky, what do you use for your background checks? Just curious.
Sterling Volunteers. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Tina.
Yeah, the reason I asked is because we have our volunteer packet is pretty extensive. And we have a volunteer inquiry form that we use off of our website that we built into Google Forms. So they go in and fill that information out, and it captures all that data down into a spreadsheet for us. And then they are also asked that question if they're compensatory or not. And then all the documents that we have for them to sign are sent out through DocuSign. So they get those and they're able to sign and get those back in to us. So we have a specific, the waiver, code of conduct. If you're compensatory, they check that box. Then they'll get a community service agreement form that they have to read and fill out and sign. That's on top of everything else. But then we have for Oregon OSHA, we have the heat illness prevention. So that's for employees and volunteers. So I'm just trying to figure out, we have a lot of different paperwork, and sometimes I have a lot of compensatories in Lynn County that I deal with. I don't have to run background checks on them because I record right into the Sheriff's Department's website, into their OPS system. And so when I get their orders, it tells me exactly what they are being charged with, what happened, what they're in for, or what they just got out of jail for. And so they have the community service hours, because they can range anywhere from 8 hours to 3 months or better. But they work in our restore, and if they're qualified enough that I don't have to babysit them as much, then they can go and work on my job site with my volunteer coordinator, that when she's out there, she keeps them busy with doing that. So, because sometimes you just pay attention to what they're doing and the questions you ask. On that volunteer interest form, they'll tell you if they have any experience doing construction stuff. So we love having volunteers out on the construction site. 9 times out of 10, they end up coming back, and that's what they like to do. So they'll come out there and do that. But I get complaints sometimes that our volunteer process is a little long, whereas it used to be just people would sign a waiver.
Mm-hmm.
And give it back to us, and they would come and volunteer their time. But now it just seems like there's so much other documentation that goes with that. And we do use Charity Proud as well, but I haven't gotten that volunteer piece figured out quite yet. So I'm assuming you can upload documents into that, but I'm not positive. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
Jennifer's like, yes.
Because it would make it much, much easier, because we send out a lot of, you have to pay with DocuSign, however many packets you send out in a year. If you send out over a certain many that's over the threshold for nonprofits, then we'd have to pay for it. We send out a lot of packets a year because that's how we deal with all of our board members. Everything's online. We don't do any paper in-house unless somebody doesn't have access to it, then they come in and we help them here. But I was just curious on that paperwork part of it. I know the bare minimum we have to have is the waiver. HFHI requires that, but I wasn't for sure about all the other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think that probably HFLA is going to be a little bit different, but it's good to ask and find out. I think these questions, I always learn so much about what other people are doing. So thank you for bringing that topic up. Very much appreciated. And I err on the lengthy questionnaire because I just feel like it keeps me from having to go back and ask a question later. That's my personal experience with that. All right, let's move on to our next question. If anyone else has any questions or comments or things that they want to share, please add it again over in the chat. So Wendy, we'll have you go first for this one, and then Amy, if you could follow up after. Does your restore have position descriptions or task descriptions? Have you found they're helpful or useful tools when training or onboarding?
So yes, we do. We also have our binder up the front, and we also have it on our website as well. When they go on the website, they'll see all the different places to volunteer, and it does specifically ask what they're interested in, as well as we ask them when they come in, besides all the paperwork that they're filling out and everything else. Sometimes when they come in and they see, oh, you got a bunch of paint in, or different things come in, we try to ask them, because they're not going to come back if all they're doing is dusting and sweeping. If they find something they're interested in, I had one lady, she was buying paint and we didn't get the dots on there yet. And I said, come in, just put the dots on. You'll get a 20% off discount. Therefore, she turned into a regular volunteer and did my whole paint section. It looked great. But besides that, it's the questions. I think we have a volunteer cashier 3 days a week, and they let everybody know, I'm a volunteer. I volunteered at the job site. I volunteer here. And it makes a big difference.
Thank you. Okay, Amy.
We have both position and task descriptions. So our positions are the overarching things, like we call customer service instead of just cashier. It's the people working up front, merchandising. We also have niche positions, like we don't actually have a lot of building materials in our store because there was already a store that sold those things when we started. So we are more of a home furnishing store. So we have things like an art processor who comes in and does just looking at our donated art and say, is that from Target or is it a $3,000 oil painting? So those are different positions that we have. And then within those, each of those has different tasks written out into very, very, very detailed task descriptions. We use something called the peanut butter sandwich problem to write our task descriptions. And I don't, I've seen some nodding, but so basically if you were asked to write a peanut butter sandwich and you were to write the description of how to make a peanut butter sandwich, many people would start with things like grab some bread. Where are you grabbing the bread from? What kind of bread is it? All of those things. So when we write out our task descriptions, we actually have someone try to follow them incredibly literally and see what hiccups they run into. Did we assume knowledge of something here? Did we assume that someone would know what we meant when we said grab a form? So it's really kind of entertaining to go through the process of writing those task descriptions. I found that they are incredibly helpful because you can, when you have someone you know is working fairly independently, you can hand them that detailed task description and leave them be, instead of having to go through it with them and making them feel like you don't trust them to do the work. And then if you have someone who you don't actually trust to do the work, you can sit there with that task description with them and be like, no, it really is this important to do each and every single one of these steps. Everybody has to do this. So it really, it works both ways. It works for both sorts of scenarios.
I love that. Thank you so much, Wendy and Amy. Who else has, something that they want to share on this topic? What kind of job descriptions or task descriptions do you have for your Restore volunteers?
Yeah, I just had a quick follow-up question for Amy. I know you said that you do have the position descriptions. Are those position descriptions available for volunteers to sign up on their own? Or is that when you're sitting down with them, you're able to place them based on their interests and based on you confirming, yes, you do know what $3,000 oil paintings are? So I'm just curious, when you have your detailed, instead of just signing up for an event that says Restore, are people able to go in and sign up for the event Restore for the painter confirmer person?
Yeah, we actually, the way that our scheduling works, we have those high-level positions available in the store schedule every day. And then we have some general positions of float or unknown, so people can try things out. We also have a little indicator if it's someone's first or second time in that position, so that one of our staff members can work more closely with them and keep a better eye on them. So it sort of goes we said that we have that new volunteer shift in the store. So you can sign up for that. And during that time, if you're not, don't know what you're interested in doing, we run through all of those positions, the higher level positions with you. And then the next time you sign up for that is when we start going into the task descriptions of what does this role actually entail.
Wow.
Building their confidence to be able to sign up for that role specifically in the future.
Very cool.
So,
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Amy, do you have like a lot of long-term like volunteers at the Restore? And I'm
We do.
thinking, oh, you do, like
Mhm.
months type stuff?
To years. Yeah, we
Years.
have both episodic, so we have people that come in and do a one-off thing or a couple of times, and then
Right.
we have some folks that have actually been with us for pushing 20 years in the store.
Wow.
And they help train the other volunteers.
Wow. Awesome.
After we retrain those ones about every 5 years to make sure that they haven't slipped into bad habits also. And that's built into the schedule. They know that it's coming. They know that they're going to get a review.
Oh, okay. Great.
And it's also an opportunity for them to show off what they know. So we've made it a fun thing instead of a punishment review of, oh, to make sure you're doing a good job.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Amy. And I've seen this also with Wendy's Restore and Amy. We had a volunteer that was a regular volunteer, and he was sharing with me how he was being trained how to repair some furniture. And he was very excited, a college student, kind of in between trying to figure out his future in life. And he was so excited from the time that he got there and was just doing different things, different job descriptions, and then to like be learning a skill from one of the other volunteers that Wendy has cultivated for years and years. So he was like developing a sense of self from that volunteer role. So it was pretty amazing, but it really takes again the nurturing from the restores to those long-term core volunteers as well. So, which goes into our very next question. What process do you have to create core and returning volunteers at the Restore? And is there a reward system or any kind of volunteer appreciation? How do you just let them know that they're valued and keep them around? Amy, if you want to start us off, and then Wendy.
Sure. I mentioned that the check-ins that we specifically check in after their first, second, and third shifts. So we get their feedback. We make sure that we're meeting their needs and that all of their questions were answered. As I said earlier, an informed volunteer is an engaged volunteer. So having that check-in specifically immediately really helps people feel fulfilled in that work. The other thing we do is a specific holiday party for store volunteers, in which we have annually a scavenger hunt of items that can be found in the store. So it's been growing in size. So we started, just a couple of volunteers came the first year. They talked to each other about it now and started talking to me about when's it going to be this month. I've already had people asking me so they could save that space in their calendars. We also do a very intentional store quarterly meeting where we call in all of the volunteers so that they get to meet each other. Because when we have little shifts with just 1 or 2 people on the floor, they don't get to know people who work on Monday don't know people who work on Friday. So we want that quarterly opportunity for them to sit down with each other and connect with each other. That's also a time where we make sure that they have information about what our affiliate is doing as a whole. So they know what our construction looks like. They know what our upcoming construction schedule looks like. They know what other departments are doing. So it really reduces that siloing effect and adds to that connection to the organization, connection to each other, and connection to the houses that are being built, so that I built that effect happens. When I made this sale in the store, it directly contributed to this house being able to be built.
That's incredible. Thank you, Amy. Wendy.
Great. Well, we do a follow-up after they can, after they've signed up and they've done their first shift, they can say how it went. And I try monthly to go in and read those things that they say. The other thing we do is we were doing a volunteer of the month where our CEO would take the volunteer out to lunch. Twice a year, we do a volunteer barbecue just in the Restore, just for the volunteers. I think last August, we had a volunteer fair and we did a friends and family of the volunteers. So they all got 25% off while that fair was going. So it helped them bring their family members in that hadn't volunteered to get their discount. So then they can see what they're doing.
Thank you both. What other experience do you all have to retain your volunteers? Any kind of other ways to celebrate them or, encourage that kind of core volunteer? And with Jennifer.
Yeah, we used to have 2 annual events, both the Restore Barbecue in the summer. Before my time, it was just for Restore volunteers. And I decided to make it for all volunteers and just have more of like a seasonal option for those that like the summer. And then there's a winter all volunteer appreciation party, and that's a little bit more formal. There's, a presentation that I give and awards. We have our Golden Hammer Awards and specialty, diamond awards, and volunteers get their hour pins and different kinds of swag that I've tried to switch up based on people's feedback. So yeah, always trying to change it and improve and learn from other, affiliates and you all too. So
That's great. Yeah, you mentioned swag. I know that that's one way that we motivate people for sure is, giving out little presents and gifts maybe that have Habitat logos on them. Wendy and Amy, do either of you do that?
Absolutely. We do a volunteer appreciation party as well, where there's take home swag. And then we do 2 holiday mailings that are actually really close to each other because we do a winter holiday mailing that always includes a mailable gift. So something that is flat and fits in a regular envelope with a card. So We don't have to charge extra to, but it actually gets to everybody's home directly. So it's a notepad. This year it's a seed paper. It's been a coaster. So just something that is flat and mailable. So those are the other thing we do is the mailing in Valentine's Day, where it's always a card that has a little game in it, like a crossword puzzle or a word search or something that is interactive with the card, which we've had a lot of positive feedback about as well. But again, it gets directly to people's houses. They don't have to come to us to get it.
That's perfect. I love it. Thank you, Amy. Wendy.
Yes, so if they're somewhat long-term volunteers, they get a t-shirt the first day that they volunteer, especially if it's going to be multiple hours. We also have logo pins along with the barbecues. We do get them all Christmas cards that the whole office signs. So yeah, just different things depending on if they become like the volunteer of the month, then they get the lunch and meet with our CEO. So it's very fun. We try to make it fun and engaging for them.
Amazing. Thank you so much. All right, we have about another 10 minutes. And so I wanted to open it up to open Q&A. Who brought questions, that they want to bring to this call about Restore Volunteerism? What are you wondering about?
I have a question, not necessarily for Restore, but in general for volunteerism. When you guys do a booth or something where you try to recruit volunteers, how do you, I guess, follow up with them to, try to get some? Because we'll get 3 or 4 pages of people saying, oh yeah, I'm interested in volunteering, and we get all their information, and then, we're lucky to get 1 or 2 maybe, but I guess that's probably just the nature of it. But thoughts?
That is partially the nature of it, but I actually have a volunteer that likes cold calling people. I suggest you find one of those. She will actually go and call everybody on that list. In addition to, I send in several email invitations to participate as well. So otherwise calling takes a lot of my time. So having a volunteer that likes to do that is so incredibly helpful. And we do have a roll-off period, so we will continue to reach out to them for a set amount of time before we're like, okay, round file.
I love that. You have the round file and it's done. Do you, just question, do you add their contact information to your e-blast that go out?
Yes.
So
our little
very
checkbox includes information to permission to send an email. So we figure having them added to our they still wanted our information in some way, shape, or form. They've agreed to be emailed. They can get our regular newsletter. Maybe they'll be interested at some point in the future.
Amazing. Thank you, Amy. And Ricky, looks like.
Yeah, I always make sure that if they're going to sign a paper that they have, either my card or is something directly to where they know how to go in and set up the profile, that it's really clear about that. And if it's not, call me, I will take care of that. And I think, Amy, that's where, the excelling with that personal contact. You can send 1,000 emails, but that one call will generate so much more. And you're right, trying to find that one person who's really good at it, that's a tough one on that.
And yeah, and what's great about this is it's actually not cold calling, it's warm calling, because they actually asked you.
Fair, that's fair.
They want us to call. They want to hear from us. And I think that call is the difference between you're just one of many in this amalgous form, to you are important, and I'm going to take the time and connect with you and find out a little bit more. And when I also need to have interns or volunteers. So if you are not bringing in interns from your local colleges, I highly suggest that this would It's good for them too, because some of them don't know how to use the phone. Doing a little training and doing a little script and, getting them their hours for their internships. It's a good way to utilize them and a good volunteer as well. So, all right. And then it looks like we've got another question. Who does the check-ins with the volunteers after their first or second shift? And so let's start out with that one. So Wendy, who does those check-ins with the volunteers?
I do usually. So if they've come more than twice, usually I'll go back and see what they type in how their volunteerism at the store went. A lot of times it's a thumbs up or a happy face. And then I usually once a month go through the list and check off all the people who just came once or multiple times, and then we ask them to come back.
Great, Amy.
I do the first check-in just to make sure everything was okay, that the sign-up process works smoothly, all of that. And then either the store manager or he delegates it to somebody else in the store. So an actual store staff member does the second check-in, because it's usually more questions that are not ones I'm going to be able to answer because I don't actually work in the store.
Right. That's a really good point. So, and it feels like they get to know more people within the organization that way. That's awesome. Wonderful. And we also had from the registration, what tactics have affiliates successfully used to recruit long-term Restore volunteers? So, Amy, have you found that there is a difference, in recruitment for those long-term volunteers? Do they come from a specific source, or, have you been able to cultivate this is how we get them?
The longest term volunteers come as connection to existing volunteers. So those are the people that stay the longest, is when they either have or build a friendship with somebody else who's working at the organization. The other piece is the connection to the mission. People want to be building houses, but can't necessarily be out on our job site swinging a hammer. We really do sell to them that they are building houses by working with Habitat, even if they're not actively framing.
Nice.
We also,
those are really two great ways.
Sorry. We also had aged out volunteers through our construction site come in and actually do the little handyman type stuff in the stores. That also helped a lot.
We also have a lot of overlap with our volunteers. So we have a lot of volunteers that work in the store and on the construction site. And that connection helps a lot as well. So actually intentionally saying, hey, here are things that you can do here in the store that you may not have thought of. So that furniture restoration piece, that going out on a delivery truck, we need strong lifters, that kind of a thing. The more overlap they have, the more connection there is to the organization. So I don't like to put people in a niche role unless they want to be there themselves.
That is a really good point. I love that. And I love, connecting with the core volunteers in one area and seeing if they want to see how other parts of the program work. And if they're interested, getting them excited, because again, it will solidify that connection to the mission overall and all the work that goes into, what we do globally at Habitat. Incredible. Okay, so we are just at the very end, unless there's one more comment that anyone wanted to share. Chris, did you want to share something?
Yeah, and Jennifer
You
has
saw me on mute, didn't you? One thing that I've done that's worked pretty well with engagement is every volunteer has an area of the store that they're responsible for. So I have somebody that's in charge of electronics and furniture and sporting goods. And twice a year I check in with them, see how it's doing, see if they want to change to another area, again, to keep their interest and their engagement.
I love that. The periodic check-ins. Are you still happy in this role? Would you like to learn something new?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. Anyone else wanted to share? Jennifer?
I just had a really quick question for everybody. I know it's a tiny bit off topic, but since at the end and we mentioned aging out, how common is it on construction sites for affiliates to have lead volunteers that are really like leading everything, not just a tiny bit? Can I just get like a show of hands or a yes or a no?
So we have quite a few of our core volunteers that have been around for a long time, decade or more, and I call them core because not all of the regular volunteers want to be a lead. So I learned that in the beginning. I couldn't figure out why I couldn't call everyone a crew lead, and it was because they just wanted to get there and swing a hammer, and they didn't want to be responsible for anybody else. They wanted to play with their friends, and so so there was a difference between my core volunteers and my crew leads. My crew leads are the ones that I could say, "Hey, we've got this group. I need some help with these volunteers." So I delineate those two pieces. But yeah, we have some phenomenal ones. And we also have the challenge of some of our construction volunteers aging out. I love when they're able to transition over to help in our restores or writing thank you letters. There's different things that they are able to pick up because they still want to be part, but they just can't, do the same physical work anymore. So that's what happens to us.
Okay, thank you.
If
Yeah,
you've been
I was
talking
kind of
about- Sorry.
just thinking about that versus I knew that having leads was very common, but just like the difference if everybody has a staff or multiple staff and then they're leads and then they're more episodic or infrequent volunteers, or if some affiliates are only having those leads and not even necessarily too much staff involvement.
So Crystal, would you say you have like a core leader in the restore, or are they just crew leads?
So our core volunteers in our restores are going to be and Wendy could speak a little bit more to this, but the ones who fix the furniture, or sometimes we have someone who keeps on coming back and they love the lighting section. They might want to do receiving. We have, again, someone who does cashier and customer service. So they come back. We actually, for the restore specifically, we don't have any of what I would call a crew lead that I'm aware of, but maybe Wendy has cultivated that without me even knowing. Wendy, do we have any crew lead volunteers?
Sorry, my mouse just died. So finger doing it. So yes, we do have a couple core volunteers. The one that actually trained a younger one to do the hammering and the fixing of stuff. I would consider him a core volunteer. He will not come to any of the dinners. I've tried to get him into the regular. That's where the restore barbecue comes into effect, since he is a leader, even though he doesn't want to be called a leader. He's training these young kids and doesn't, it happens so gradually that I don't think he'd consider himself that leader, but he was a construction site volunteer. I have actually about 3 of them in each store. We also have a couple guys that are retired that just want to load people's cars and things like that. They actually started at the job site and didn't like it, and then volunteered one time in the store, and then we got them. We hooked them. You make it fun for them, and then they get to know the other workers, and that's the big turn for us.
When we identify people who are going to be in that any kind of a leader role like that, we also offer them a little bit of additional training. And if they're going to be in any supervisory capacity of other volunteers, we actually require a full first aid and CPR training. And so they're identified, even if they don't get a title, that means that we can be comfortable and confident leaving them in charge, even if some staff members have to step out.
That's excellent. I love that. And that's definitely one of the areas that I want to grow our own affiliate, that we do those trainings for any lead volunteers. I love it, Amy. Where do you get your training? Is it off of the My Habitat site, or do you have trainings that you do somewhere else?
We actually have a organization locally that donates their time to provide those trainings. We work, all staff that is going to be ever alone with volunteers is required to have a CPR certificate, an AED. And at the same time, they will do it for us if we have a class of 10, not for less. So we also open it up to any other volunteers that would like to participate, and occasionally have pulled in folks from even other organizations, like our local boat building school was like, "Do you guys do first aid?" We're like, "Actually, kind of. Come on over." And we've got one of their guys actually volunteering in the store because he did the training with us. So there's an accidental recruitment tool.
I love that. Accidental recruitment. It's the best. I liked Wendy's where, come put the dots on for us, just grab them while they're there and turn the customer into the volunteer. I love it. All right. Thank you all so much. If there's any other thoughts that you have, please add them over into the chat on the side. We're just going to do a quick closing and some takeaways. Selena, take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks everybody so much for being so involved. This has been amazing, and I just appreciate everybody being so warm and enthusiastic for my first Western region quarterly call. We appreciate it. I am going to ask Lindsay to throw a Mentimeter on the screen for those of you that haven't used Mentimeter before. It is a way to, it's going to be ask you a question. There's going to be a QR code that you can scan with your phone, and then there's going to be a join code at the top. What it's going to do is it is going to allow you to answer the question on your phone, and it's going to put everybody's responses up so we can see in real time everybody's responses. So what topic would you like to discuss at our Q3 meeting? So we're going to keep that up during the wrap up. So feel free to put that in. Multiple answers are allowed. And there should also be a function where if you just don't have anything off the top of your head, but you see a response come through, that you can vote for it. So a couple of different ways to get some responses there. So we would love to hear the feedback. Feel free to add, even if you don't have a full topic, if you just want to go back to, a not panel style, you're welcome to add something like that too. But I'm going to leave that up for the wrap up. I know we only have a couple more minutes and want to be very respectful of everybody's time. While you are in the middle of doing that, again, please don't forget to keep your eyes peeled for additional information about our next meeting. We don't have a date confirmed yet for the Q3 meeting, so please keep your eyes peeled from an email either from me, Crystal, or Lindsay. We will have that out as soon as possible. And then if you needed any more information about the Western Region Conference in April of 2025, you can feel free to reach out and we can send that, or again, keep your eyes peeled for registration for that. Lindsay did pop over in the chat that some of the organizations that we were talking about that we use, the volunteer hubs, the volunteer up, stuff like that, may be at the conference. So that's exciting if you wanted to learn more or speak with them directly. And then we'll just kind of wrap up here with, are there any takeaways that anybody would be open enough to sharing? I absolutely love this kind of environment. I personally got so inspired and got so many ideas. Again, I've been in my position about 1.5 years, and as you all know, the learning curve to anything habitat, especially volunteers, especially the Restore, learning curve is, what is that, 45 degrees? So I definitely have a lot to take away, and I appreciate everybody with all their information. Does anybody else have any takeaways that they wanted to share that they're excited to bring back to their affiliate?
I just wanted to mention really quick that we can't click on it. I thought that we would be able to click on it and vote, but I'm not finding that is available.
Oh no, okay.
So this is a learning
There are
curve.
responses coming in.
Oh, there are responses.
Oh, okay.
coming in. Like, are they voting with a little thumbs up on them, or?
I'm seeing the responses just populate on my screen. Are you all seeing that?
Yes, I see the responses populating.
okay.
We're also supposed, like, the second part of it was that we were supposed to be able to click on it to vote, do a little thumbs up.
It is not
Okay.
open for votes yet, so I think someone has to do something on your end.
Oh, is there a little thing that says, oh, I see something happening.
Always learning. Look at us. Always learning. Always learning.
So much learning.
This one, perhaps?
Voting in progress. It's possible. I don't know where they are to vote. Was it on the same link? Oh, look, now it's back. So if you scan it, it's, and you've done one, you should be able to vote. So, yay.
So if they go
Let's-
back to that QR code.
Yes.
Okay.
It should, like, I just opened it back up on my phone and I see a whole bunch of options on there.
I see up here in the top left, 4 people have voted. 5.
Hey.
Awesome. Awesome. Getting all kinds of good data and feedback, which is exciting. Yeah. Definitely still open. We'll leave the floor open for any takeaways or just general questions. I know some people said that they had ones that were off topic. We have about 5 minutes. So if your question could be answered from a few folks in about 5 minutes, just any takeaways anybody wanted to share, general questions, we'll just kind of leave the floor open for these last few moments.
I think I'll stop sharing unless we want, do we want this up?
Does it show, can you stop the voting? If everyone has voted, maybe we can just kind of, oh,
let's
look.
do that.
Yay, there we go. Looks like swag roundup was a big topic. Looks like we're all excited about that and how to retain our volunteers long term. We don't have to have a one topic call, so we definitely can take several things. I love the idea of swag roundup and maybe even talking about different companies that we use, because some of us might be spending a lot more on t-shirts than other people. So maybe that should be one of our topics, not just like what we get, but where we get it from. Love that. And then how to retain volunteers long-term is a big one. So I love that. How to train staff to work with volunteers. That's big. Including unskilled volunteers at all stages. It looks like that one's got 3 as well. Great. So if you have any more like voting, go ahead and get that in really quick, because I think it'll still populate. Otherwise, it looks like we've got our topics that we're going to round up for the next call. And then, like Selena said, if there's any other last minute questions or takeaways that you want to share.
I just saw Scott's comment in the chat. That's exciting.
So Scott, you're just getting going on your restore, so all the info is really helpful. Hey, that's what we're here for.
Yeah. Good
It's
luck.
been a long time coming, but we're finishing up renovating the bathrooms and stuff. So we're hoping to actually have at least a soft opening maybe this next month. So it's been pretty exciting time for us.
Huge congratulations. That's a big step.
That's amazing. Yeah. Huge congratulations. That's amazing. Awesome.
Want to do our thank you, Selena?
What's that?
Our thank you, just kind of our closeout.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yep. Feel free to add anything else into the chat. And we can try to get around to it at another time. But it looks like we have some really good topics for next time. Keep your eyes peeled for the date for our next meeting. Thank you everybody for contributing. We appreciate it. Everybody have fun. If anybody's trunk or treating tonight or trick or treating tomorrow, anything fun like that. Hope everybody has a great time. Stay dry in all those rainy states right now. Perfect. Thank you for your contact information, Amy. We appreciate that. Thank you, Wendy and Amy, for letting us pick your brain and having all this information ready. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you for the Q3 meeting. Have a great rest of
Huge
your
thank
week.
you to Lindsay too. Thank you so much for all you do all year long. Thank you all.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.